Think for yourself. Question authority.
What's up guys, welcome back. We have a big video here and another awesome in-depth technical discussion, so if you enjoy it, please hit the like button to support the channel and subscribe because there will be more coming as we move forward. First off, the gameplay you are seeing is the PC version of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and a big thank you and shout out to Screenwave Media for providing me with the code for the game. And in terms of the single player campaign, I'd say it's one of the best Call of Duties probably since Black Ops 1 or Modern Warfare 2. And if you are a fan of the past Call of Duty games, I highly recommend picking it up on whatever platform you have. There are some definite gameplay upgrades for the betterment of the series and a nice step in the right direction in my opinion. So now for the topic at hand. There is continued talk of next generation consoles, namely with the extreme power of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlett, and people have been wondering and thinking about how is Nintendo going to get ports from those consoles coming up, which are due to release next year. Now, regardless if PlayStation 5 is more powerful than Xbox Scarlett or not, is kind of besides the point. However, what we do know is that they will both be substantially faster in terms of their SSD drives, which, yes, Microsoft did also confirm they will be using SSDs for the Xbox Scarlett. And back when Sony announced first details on PS5 in April, they claimed the SSD drive would be faster than anything in current PCs on the market, which at that time for SSD drives for PCs, the fastest they had available was 3.5 gigabytes per second. However, it should be noted that SSD manufacturers since that time have recently announced SSD drives that will be substantially faster than even that in the coming year. So by the time PS5 is released, it will probably be right in line with the higher end SSD drives for PC, which my guess would be just over 4 gigabytes a second on the read speed of it. PS5 and Xbox Scarlett likely will be using a custom version of AMD's new PCIe 4.0 bandwidth, which, as a side point, back in 2018, Nintendo was hiring developers to work on hardware with PCIe support as well, which would definitely help for bandwidth for the more powerful Switch coming. But this next generation upgrade in loading speed is said to be one of the biggest upgrades ever for a console generation, and developers have mentioned that this wouldn't just be used for quickly loading a game, but also would affect game development at its core. So for example, you'd be able to load an extremely detailed world with very long draw distances and NPCs filled with it that would load near seamlessly to the player's field of view. Also, one thing that is really interesting is that loading would also be cut drastically down to near nothing, because technically the game would just need to load the first area, and as you progress or walk through the world, the game wouldn't need to preload textures or preload anything for that matter, because if programmed correctly ahead of time, it would all be loaded as you progressed in the game world without it ever needing to be noticed as quote-unquote loading to the player beyond the first time you boot up the game. Remember, 4 gigabytes a second, guys, is amazingly fast, and current read speed of the PS4's internal hard drive is just over 50 megabytes per second. So we're dealing with gigabytes to megabytes. It's way faster. And this slower speed of the hard drive of the PS4 and Xbox One has caused developers to simply add a lot of extra loading to the first boot up and a lot of reused textures without variety to save on space in the same area or level in the game. So with 4 gigabytes a second in these new SSD drives that the PS5 and Xbox Scarlett will be using, this will allow for game worlds to not only have seamless loading, but also a variety of different types of objects in the game world itself, different types of NPCs and different types of textures and effects all used together due to the amazing read speeds possible, all at native 4K 60 frames per second. Now, of course, displaying all that on screen will in turn require the increased processing power of the next generation consoles. However, one thing to consider as well is that it's very possible that a lot of the details you see in front of you will only be loaded in your field of view, and when you start then turning around, the game world will load seamlessly so that you couldn't actually tell it wasn't there before turning. This will further dramatically increase the level of detail seen, so theoretically an open world game could have the same level of detail as a game that is enclosed in a room or building would. So either way here, you're looking at quite a big leap in technology on all aspects that wouldn't be possible without these extremely fast SSD drives. So obviously this technology is not possible on the current hardware of the Nintendo Switch, which leads to the question of how ports will work on this reported new, more powerful, enhanced Nintendo Switch coming, which, as I've shown with plenty of evidence in my previous videos, is pointing to an end of the fiscal year March 2020 release, basically right before next generation consoles are launched. Now, under a normal console generation life cycle, the current Switch wouldn't be upgraded or replaced until its 5-year life cycle was completed in 2022, as you've no doubt heard other people saying. However, even taking all the real evidence that I've shared away from the equation of the new Switch coming at the latest next year, it's looking extremely unlikely Nintendo will be waiting 3 more years to release a new Switch to get ports from next generation and even current gen. The reason for that is simple. The Switch is a mobile device that is using mobile technology that's getting close to 5 years old. And in combination with that, it is quite a bit less powerful than even the Xbox One S. The Xbox One S is over 3 times as powerful as the Switch is in docked mode. Now, in previous generations, you saw the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 continue to get ports a full year into the life of the PS4, even though a lot of those games were not running very well and having a lot of performance issues. So in 2014, you had Call of Duty Advanced Warfare on last generation consoles, PS3 and Xbox 360, but in 2015, 2 years after the PS4 launched, Black Ops 3 on PS3 and 360 only had the multiplayer mode sold on the system since they weren't able to run the single player campaign. So by then it was getting beyond obvious that it was over for those consoles. There was lots of frame rate issues, really bad performance, screen tearing on the screen, and they in turn were lowering resolutions in those games to 600p, 540p and things like that, even on those consoles. So in terms of the PS4 and Xbox One transition to the PS5 and Xbox Scarlett, you'll see less games and less ports in general to PS4 and Xbox One in 2021, and even far less in 2022, basically close to none by that time. Now, if the Nintendo Switch was on par with the Xbox One since it launched in 2017, then I'd say Nintendo might be able to wait until holiday 2021 to release a more powerful Switch, which would be 2 years from now. But the Switch, as it is in reality, isn't hardly getting any ports from PS4 or Xbox One, the current generation consoles, as it is. So if the PS4 and Xbox One starting in 2021, right after the PS5 comes out basically, if they won't even be getting as many ports themselves as current gen consoles right now, it's extremely unlikely, unless Nintendo pays for some ports themselves again, that the Switch OG or the current Switch on the market will get any further support from AAA developers past 2020, which means even without all the real evidence shown on this channel of the new Switch coming latest in 2020, it should seem very likely for Nintendo to continue the momentum of the Switch platform that they'd release a beefed up Switch in time for the next generation to arrive. So the key advantage that this new Switch will have is the extreme advancement of the read speeds of mobile memory technology. I had a discussion a few days ago with some of you guys about this on Twitter. Some were questioning that anything at all would be possible. Some said maybe Nintendo could use M.2 NVMe SSDs, which honestly could theoretically work for Nintendo since the Surface Pro X is using those. However, in terms of how thin or portable Nintendo wants these new Switch models to be, since I'm sure there'll be more than just one down the line, what Nintendo will likely be going for is eUFS 3.0 memory, which stands for Embedded Universal Flash Storage 3.0, the newest version of it. These are amazingly fast chips, and 3.0, which was recently released just a few months ago by Samsung, can process read speeds at over 2 gigabytes per second, which of course granted will be slower than the PS5 and Xbox Scarlett estimated speeds, but one key thing to remember is that this new Switch is not going to be rendering games at native 4K. And if it does, I'm going to be shocked, to be honest with you, but I honestly don't think it will. For all intents and purposes, it's going to be 1080p, 60 frames per second, which is rendering or upscaling to 4K on your TV at home. Will be the most likely scenario. So since there would be no native 4K assets to load, an embedded UFS 3.0 loading up 1080p assets would be, by far, more than enough for the new Switch to use to run ports to the next generation in terms of how they are designed to be loading up areas. The graphical effects obviously would be scaled down and so forth, but without something like eUFS 3.0, it would be impossible to get ports from the next generation of consoles going forward. PS4 and Xbox One are going to struggle to run games coming out past 2020 when the PS5 launches due to them themselves having not only such slow CPUs, but also those extremely slow hard drives. And of course, the market after 2020 will already have moved full force into the 9th generation by that time. So for eUFS 3.0 to work in the new Switch, it has to be cost effective, right? Memory storage space can really drive up costs for a new console. So the good news is that UFS 3.0 is already being used in the OnePlus 7 Pro smartphone, and the total build cost for that phone is only $324, which of course varies per company since they were charged $70 for the Snapdragon 855, which in comparison costs Samsung less than the Galaxy S10 Plus. But the key is the cost of UFS 3.0. It's listed there as costing them just $20 for 128 gigabytes. So obviously for Nintendo, if they went with 256 to 512 gigabytes for a new Switch, they'll likely be spending between $40 to $80 on the console's memory. But since Samsung sells UFS 3.0 in 128, 256 and 512 gigabyte variants right now, chances are very likely that the prices are not exactly iterative, meaning just because 128 gigabytes costs $20, the 512 gigabyte version might cost $65 to $70 depending on the deal Nintendo gets. It's very interesting when you think about it, but you can see that this is actually possible and at a good price to Nintendo, providing the read speeds they need to get ports for the next generation. We've discussed in the last few videos the mobile technology in terms of processing power now being at a level beyond PlayStation 4. Now we have internal embedded memory that is not only faster than PS4's hard drive, but absolutely crushes and obliterates it, and it's available right now for mobile devices. So yet again, we see the blurring of the lines between home console and mobile technology. But as of right now, mobile technology has greatly surpassed what is being used in the PS4, Xbox One, and of course the current Nintendo Switch in terms of embedded storage memory speeds. And that's truly amazing. So guys, there you have it. That's exactly how this new more powerful Switch, which is heavily likely to come out next year at the latest, will be able to run future ports from the PlayStation 5 being downscaled at lower resolutions to 1080p without being limited by its storage memory bandwidth speeds. And of course, as we talked about in my previous videos, ray tracing wouldn't necessarily be needed as long as the new Switch has just enough processing power, which would be around PlayStation 4 level with IPC improvements at 7 nanometers, similar to recent examples like the Surface Pro X. So it's an exciting time with where technology is going, and now we can almost see the roadmap ahead and how Nintendo could be able to get ports from next gen and do so with technology that's currently available on the market right now. Since after holiday 2020, even Xbox One, PS4 will start getting less and less ports themselves, and the current Switch simply won't be supported by third parties at that point. Since even right now, it's still getting last gen port after last gen port, besides a few outliners over the last 2.5 years it's been on the market, like The Witcher 3, Overwatch, Mortal Kombat 11, Doom, and Wolfenstein 2, for example. So don't be surprised to see Nintendo announce this new Switch soon, and when they do, of course, we'll have way more to talk about in terms of the new technology that the console will be using, besides just its enhanced exoscreen technology. So it's definitely something to look forward to. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.